The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett.
Everybody's talking about consciousness. Everybody wants that eternal kiss. Yeah, everyone's saying there's more than this. Everyone wants to follow their own bliss. Talking about one love, one blood, one life in everyone. One life, give each other. We are sisters and brothers. We sing Om.
On the Expansion Zone, we examine life and our quest to understand who and what we are and of the vastness of human potentials. We explore the making of our world from quantum physics to parapsychology, health, sociology, and philosophy, along with practical living. You are reminded of the possibilities in creating personal change. So for an hour, we'll stimulate and expand the mind.
Om Shanti, 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 Shanti. Sing the world. Let's do it together. Shanti, 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 Shanti. It's time to wake up. Shanti, Shanti, brighter day.
Well, welcome once again to another edition of the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I am, of course, your host, Sonia Barrett, and it is Monday, and I want to thank you so much, as always, for tuning in on this Monday, all Mondays. And if you are in your car, obviously you're tuned into 90.7 FM, and if you are on the internet, you are probably listening to it streaming at kpfk.org. I am videotaping this interview today. So for anybody who is in Radio Land, you'll get an opportunity to go and see it and see me wearing my Beam Me Up headset. So anyway, now you know how much I love these quotes. So I've got two short quotes today. And the first one is, like a battery, the human mind and body must be fully discharged to stretch their capacity. And that's by Haram Sifi. And the other one is, your entire body is like one big hologram. Each aspect is deeply interrelated to other aspects of yourself. And that's by Catherine Kerrigan. The Difference Between Pain and Suffering is I believe, her book. And I think the topic today is longevity and breath as the primary nutrient. Of course, there's so many other things involved in whatever the topic may be, whatever we say it is, because there's so many other things that connect. And our guest today is obviously, where am I? Our guest today is Troy Casey, who is the author of hashtag Ripped at 50, A Journey of Self-Love. And all right, so a little bit about the quotes. The first one, your entire body is like one big hologram. Each aspect is deeply interrelated to other aspects of yourself. Basically, are you stretching your capacity, or are you lost in fear? That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to even have to say anymore. I think it speaks for itself. That's a question. That's a big question that needs to be explored by each person. The next one is, your entire body is like one big hologram. Each aspect is deeply interrelated to other aspects of yourself. So what do I have to say? Are you examining all aspects of yourself? Perhaps doing so holds the key to resolving many of our physical discomforts and emotional discomforts as well. But it's how it all ties together. So chew on that, and hopefully you might have some sort of burst of realization today, especially during today's show. So I'm going to read more of the bio of today's guest because I like it, and I think he's going to share quite a bit, but I want to read this. So leading longevity authority, Troy Casey, certified health nut, is a world-renowned life coach and healer who has soared soared the earth searching for the most powerful health and healing methods. He devoted his life to restoring the planet from a young age. Choi even spent over 8 years living and working with the indigenous tribes in the Amazon rainforest as not only a healer, but also a medicine hunter, utilizing some of the world's most sacred plants. Choi has also studied Vipassana meditation techniques, Ashtanga yoga, and more recently at the world famous Czech Institute, working closely with Paul Chek. Choi has lectured and taught throughout the world, appearing on numerous television shows, news programs, international documentaries, and many books around the world. This is due to his ability to successfully restore physical, mental, and emotional balance to clients who have failed with all other systems. His vision for clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind in his lifetime drives his passionate work for personal and planetary wellness. By watching, listening, and following Choi's methods, you will be able to truly dominate all of your goals at the highest level. And of course, his website is troycasey.com. And I do follow his work as well. So I am excited to have you on the show. Welcome, 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 Choi.
Thank you so much for having me, Sonia. I'm so excited to be here. I lived in LA for 25 years and I've been on KPFK numerous times with Lisa Gar. And then my friend Fidel, he used to have the hip hop show back in the day. And I used to come on that as well. So thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, it's good then. I mean, you're very familiar with KPFK. So it's really nice to have your energy here again. But, just real quickly, actually, I saw you. I mean, well, I knew of you before that. But I saw you in Malibu at the farmer's market. You happened to be there that time, and it was last year, maybe it was last year before last year, with your book and all of that. So that was kind of cool. All right. So what I want to ask you, the first thing is this: because of all that you do, where is that defining moment? There's always that moment sometimes in our lives that just leads us to, you know what? I need to go down this rabbit hole. And you know how that is. You start down the rabbit hole, not knowing how deep this thing goes, and you end up exploring all these other aspects. Sometimes it's just about personal growth. Sometimes it's a spiritual aspect of it. Sometimes it's a physical situation. So just to give us some insight, what led you down this beautiful path of health awareness?
Yeah, so I was a Versace model sitting in Milan, and I used to have digestive problems, bloating, constipation, and I would bloat. And in that industry, it's a very cutthroat industry, and the agents, they would be like, "Oh, honey, you're fat," and I'd be like, "Well, I'm the same person I was yesterday." I was like, "How did I gain this much weight?" And of course, I believe that there's two forces that are guiding us always on this planet, and that your curse is your gift ultimately. And so that was about, over 30 years ago. I got into juicing, internal purification, whole food eating. And I was living in Italy at the time. And when I started to research nutrition, the farmers markets were there. And I had never been to a farmer's market. And so I started eating whole foods, and lo and behold, my digestion changed. I looked in the toilet bowl, and there was a difference there. And so I kept on going with my studies, and it took me about 20 years to really clean up my gut. And getting off gluten was a big piece for me. Juicing and fasting had always given me incredible results. So I would do 4 fasts a year: liver flushes, colon cleanses, juice fasting. And I looked in the mirror and got, immediate results from the inflammation that was in my body. And so from there, I moved to Los Angeles. I had a lot of success in the modeling world. I was a Versace model. 4 times over. I worked with some of the original supermodels, Christy Turlington, Naomi Campbell, and I had a lot of success. And I started living a rock star phase and partying a lot, and that got out of control, out of hand. And when I moved to Los Angeles to start an acting career, I knew I couldn't do it as a drunk. So I really wanted to clean up my life, and it was AA. Although it has some really good principles, just like any religion, it was not the thing that it wasn't the say all end all, especially when the first principle was to admit that you're powerless, and I could never do that. But step 11 was sought through meditation and prayer. I always noticed that the people that spoke about step 11, they had a very unique je ne sais quoi. They seemed to be more happy, more grounded, more balanced. And so that piqued my interest. And in 1999, I had a episode where, I lost my cool. I was in a relationship, and I just vowed to meditate. I didn't know anything about it. And I started sitting on my pillow and started getting results immediately. And about 4 months later, I was waiting tables at the time. This other actor waiter said he had sat, the granddaddy of all meditation courses. And I'd heard about these retreats, and I didn't know anything about it. And he provided the literature. This is before the internet. He provided the literature from the Vipassana Foundation, S.N. Goenka, and I cried reading the literature, and I filled out my application. And within 2 weeks, I sat my first course. And so Vipassana meditation was one of my first wake-up calls. And then from there, I came back, and I was practicing a lot, and I was trying to turn everyone on to Vipassana. And I was hanging out in other healing circles, and somebody turned me on to the Maori healers. And I heard that they use sticks and stones, and they go deep into the body, and they can even reset broken bones. And I was like, whoa, sign me up. And I had my first experience with them, and that was extremely profound. That was my second wake-up call. And then I started working with an herbal company from the Amazon rainforest. And I went down to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca with the Shipibo Indians. And that was my third major wake-up call. And I had 3 very profound visions when I was down there. And one was of my online career that you see now called Certified Health Nut. I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, and on the Sunset Strip at the Comedy Store. And I was, full-blown actor at that time, fully trained in theater. And the idea of my natural medicine background intertwined with my on-camera career and my stand-up comedy, and the Certified Health Nut was born. The third vision that I had was that humanity makes it from the precipice of ecological disaster. And of course, working in the Amazon, I saw how industry was destroying the Amazon, how oil is interconnected to everything, oil exploration. And that is one of the major things that is, retarding the ecosystem. And so I came out of the jungle with these visions, and I got to work ever since. And I created a family. That was one of my visions there. The spirit of my daughter came to me. And so I've been putting these visions that I had into action for the last 15 years, and everything that you see on the internet. If you scroll back to my original videos on YouTube, it was all in the Amazon, or a lot of it was in the Amazon. And so my vision for clean air, water, and soil, and equitable systems for mankind, how do we do that? And so my mission is to raise human consciousness and change all systems. And it's a symbiotic relationship. We can't really do one without the other. We're all burning gasoline. So I would go to these protests for the Amazon rainforest against oil companies, and then everybody was pumping, gasoline into their vehicle and not really taking full stock and responsibility for themselves. And so I realized that the mind, we're dealing really with brain viruses, values with judgments attached to them. They're termed mimetic viruses. And so these are antithetical to life on Earth. So how can I subjugate that? So I use a lot of my humor and then my natural medicine background. And then I'm 55 now, and it seems the older I get, the healthier I get. And if you look at statistics right now, 70% of the American people are obese or overweight, higher in Latin American communities, higher in African American communities. Cancer's 1 and 2, diabetes 33%. So we've got major issues. And so I think all roads are kind of leading back to holistic health, even in the current situation that we're dealing with right now. People are looking for natural immunity. They're looking for organic food. And so I think the tides have really turned as far as the consciousness goes. And once the consciousness is raised, then we need to develop new systems in medicine, education, energy, farming, commerce, everything that we're basically doing. And I have tools for that. And if you didn't get the memo, I am now president of Planet Earth. I ran last year and nobody ran against me, so I won. And yeah, so I'm here for the solutions.
I love it. I love it. As I always say, I'm, president of my life. So, but, so that all really dovetails, like everything that you were saying about what's necessary for the planet and, water and the forest and all of that. Well, it all leads back to this core thing you talk about, which is breath, which if we, when all of those things, when they are out of balance and what should I say, toxic and misused and disrupted, it all leads back to, the human's ability to breathe and breathe in what? And that's a big part of your work, is talking about breath as this ultimate nourishing force.
Well, breath and I postulate breath and sunlight are, the first forms of nutrition.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they're also 2 of the 9 pillars that are in my book. But because it's primary, if we don't have water, if we don't have food, we die in about 30, 40, maybe 50 days. No water, anywhere from 4 to 10 days, we're dead. But no oxygen, within 3 to 5 minutes, you're dead. So I take everything back to base fundamental principles. That's the 9 pillars in my book, Ripped at 50, A Journey to Self-Love. No one can argue with them. They're immutable laws that govern our existence here, physiologically, biologically, and psychologically. And so, and my main message to humanity is, the natural law of correspondence, as above, so below. How do we expect the world to be healthy if we are not healthy ourselves? And breath is one of the 9 pillars, nutrition being another, hydration being another. Sleep is also huge, but breathing and biomechanics are interrelated, and how the diaphragm works. And so I take a lot of my work is based around breathing and breathing mechanics.
Yes. And to realize that nature is it. And how
Yes.
normal, this is, that we end up having to take something that is normal, natural, and just simply is, to having to now get people to recognize that ultimately, nature is the governing force here. So it's really fascinating to see how, to a great degree, we've gone, I guess, backwards, even though we often think that we are the most, civilized, as we say, society, and we're moving forward. Yet we look at these ancient groups, these ancient societies who lived so closely to the earth, and just lived very differently. And here we are now aiming to try to do that again. It's just, which is what your work is about, going back to what the future, going back to normal.
Going back to nature, ultimately. And Jethro Kloss has a family heirloom. You can buy it in most health food stores. That was one of my first books, which is Back to Eden. And, nature has all the solutions when we live symbiotically with them. And ultimately, we have to understand that death is a part of life. This is the journey. And so, but we are immortal beings. And so there's a spiritual component. And again, I don't want to get too sideways on philosophy, but
it's necessary too, though.
Yes. And, but the ultimate thing is we are nature. We're in symbiotic relationship with nature. We're connected to each other. We're connected to the environment. We are the earth. In fact, the real law is the living air, water, and soil, the living man. And so we are the law. And I study natural law. And I think it's important for everyone out there, as we get caught up in all these philosophies, this social engineering, the brainwashing, the propaganda that's coming out of the media conduits. We have to understand, basic fundamental principles and natural law, the law of cause and effect, the law of correspondence, the law of polarity, the law of gender, and really understand how we interplay with that, and knowing the difference between right and wrong. The United States of America has our God-given rights written on paper, and that's, the first in the modern world. As you stated before, these ancient cultures that walked the face of the planet, they were living a little bit more in symbiotic relationship with the earth. We've just gotten so far out of balance for, industry, for business, and everything's scientifically validated. There's so many people doped up on scientism right now. It's not even real science. Science is the methodology of observation. And we observe and grow and learn when we developed higher elements of technology, whether it's the microscope or the telescope or, other things like genetic testing. So technology is useful. Remember, there's two forces governing everything, good, bad. And so you can talk infinitum in both directions on what technology is good or bad. So we use it what's useful. My prayer is that we use technology in our favor. Instead, we make it our whipping boy instead of the other way around. And so because right now, if you see the way things are coming down the pipeline, they want to make it into the AI and the matrix and cut you off on your digital cash and inject you with gene therapies that are unproven. This is all a science fiction experiment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, it absolutely is, and I think that is the difficulty for some people to acknowledge that. And I think the reason is because they're inundated with fear. People are drowning in fear, and when you're in fear like that, you can't see. The only thing you can see is the fear, and of course, a system that says, I will save you.
We will save you.
Yeah,
exactly. The divide and conquer. This is neo-Marxism. These are ideas that the government will come and save you. And
well, history speaks for itself, though. That's not true.
Correct. And this is we have to get very clear on what's going on. This is propaganda. This is social engineering. Look up at the history of Edward Bernays, who created public relations. All the news programs we've seen through the 20th century are all pay-per-play, whether that's politics. They sold us on weapons of mass destruction. But everyone knows in their heart of heart that Iraq and Afghanistan was about oil. Syria was about oil. Libya was about oil. I worked in the Amazon rainforest. Ecuador and Peru are number 5 and 6 producers of oil. Venezuela is number 4. Iran is number 3. We're always trying to go after them. Iraq was number 2, and Saudi Arabia is number 1. And we already have our military bases over there. And Libya was number 9. And so this is really about oil exploration. The Sudan, everything that we've done to Africa is about natural resources. And I postulate that we can live in accordance with the laws of biomimicry, where it states that life creates conditions conducive for life if we align with the principles of nature. So we can do things in a different way. It may not be good for business. However, business structures that we have that are currently set up based on oil, based on the petrodollar. And so these things are not working for our future. And so I ask everyone out there listening to come correct on this, because we are all pumping gasoline into our vehicles. And that is an act of genocidal racism. As we get sold all these ideas of race baiting, gender bending, men and women divide, feminism. Look at the root of these concepts that are sold. The Gloria Steinem worked with the CIA in 1973. My mother didn't work until 1979. They wanted 2 people to pay into the tax structure. Now who's watching the children? Who's feeding the children? What are childhood statistics for obesity and cancer? mean, these things are going through the roof. We have to take responsibility and look in the mirror.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you said obviously way huge mouthful, but yes, there's that other aspect with women, with I think it was with Edward Bernays as well, in terms of the cigarettes, right? I mean, the fact that the cigarette market, they realized that they were losing out. I mean, just absolute greed. They were losing out on that market. So they had to find a way to get women to be comfortable enough to begin to smoke, which was what the Virginia Slims, came about, and the
Correct.
psychology behind the marketing. And these, obviously these are people who are masters at marketing. So
They used Freudian technology. Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And they used all that high level psychological research against us, and they play us against our hormones, which is fear and sex. If you don't buy the cigarettes or the car or the thing, you won't get the woman. And I was in television advertising as well. I did television commercials. It's all implied. It's sexual implications. The definition of pornography is in television programming and television commercials. And so, and then the other hormones they play against us is fear. And so it's like a pinball machine.
it's a constant stimulation of just the right areas in the brain and chemical
Neurochemicals.
responses. Yeah, and it just goes on and on. But yeah, I think we all sort of get fascinated by the majority that simply just do not see that at all. It's just mind-boggling. But anyway, so let's talk about before we go to break. Let's talk a bit about what some of this is about in terms of what people can do. I know that there's a lot of people who have had little movement. They already weren't doing much movement, but then when this whole thing hit, they were sitting a lot more inside on the couch. And what's essential to us as human beings is movement. And I looked at that. I think, so we drive our cars and we do a lot of those convenient approaches way before the obviously the pandemic. It's been going on for a long time. But when you look at a human being and the fact that we came with these legs as our traveling, this is what we actually use to travel. And you look at how we don't have to climb, and we don't go out and hunt. And you just look at how much the body is not utilized and stretched and exercised anymore. And that's one of the things that drew me to your work, seeing that. And I already knew that, but I was watching you and I thought, wow, we're just not stretched out at all. Do you want to talk about some of that?
Well, yes. Exercise is a necessity, not a luxury. The body is designed to move through time and space. And the number one way to do that is walking. That is my most prescribed exercise for everyone. If we just get into a walking program. So what does sitting do? Sitting creates thoracic kyphosis. We're hunched over. What does that do to our psychology? Look at an aging person. Look at a depressed person. They're hunched over. They have that type of posture. And so you want to activate your posterior chain so you can stand upright. And of course, there's certain exercises to do that, but a good walking program, especially barefoot in nature, will help correct your posture. And again, the purpose of exercise is to move the lymphatic fluid. A stagnant body of water turns into a cesspool. From there, all sorts of disease can proliferate. You're also sitting, so your hip flexors are shut down, and then your glutes stop working. And your glutes are your prime movers, or your butt. And so it's very important that the body moves. You talk about climbing trees, getting, honey out of the trees, hunting, stuff like that. Our brachial plexus is connected to our arms. I get my clients to buy a very simple pull-up bar from, any sporting goods place, or even better yet, go to the thrift store or go to a garage sale. Get a pull-up bar that somebody's not using, hang it in your house, and hang for 2 minutes a day, and most of your neck pain and back pain will go away.
Yeah. Well, we had a pull-up bar, but then when I started taking your course, I started to utilize it. Now, the first time that I did it, now, once upon a time, yes, it was easy for me to even do pull-ups, but I hadn't done any of that in such a long time. Even though I hike a lot and I was doing a lot of that, you still don't realize the muscles that aren't being used. So when I first did it, it was like, oh my God, I couldn't hang there for too long. But gradually doing it several times a day, which is what you suggest, to build up, to that. It was 20 seconds and 30 seconds. And you feel mentally, you feel so much better. That's the crazy thing. All the stretching that you talk about, Troy, you feel so much better. I have a smaller exercise ball. I mean, just watching you and started using that. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on for us to talk about this so that people realize you don't have to spend crazy money. These things you can do in your home and they're not really costing you, but they need to be done. They need to happen.
Absolutely. And I do believe that, again, walking is the best exercise. If I can just get everybody out there walking, normal walking, walk for 20 minutes to 50 minutes a day, your life will change dramatically. And so, and get a good set of footwear. The earth runners, I think, are the best out there because they're flat and they also have a copper wire that grounds you to the earth. So if you don't want to be a barefoot walker, get a pair of earth runners first. And I have a 10% discount, Health Nut, if you want to try them. They sent me a pair last year and I just wanted to run on these trails here in Sedona. And so, correct your footwear. You don't want all that cushioning on there. And that will also correct your posture. Very simple, 2 minutes a day on the hanging. Support your body with your legs in the beginning. You don't have to hang completely. Wait till you get some dexterity in your shoulders. Do 10-second intervals, 20-second intervals, whatever the body can handle. And you'd be surprised of how much stretching actually pumps up your muscles because you're bringing all that chi, that circulation, that blood into the muscles. It's opening up the channels. And so most of what I teach is really just clearing the channels, whether it's cleanse and detox through your nutrition and your fasting program, or whether that's stretching, or whether that's breathing and opening up the breathing channels, including your nasal passages. So it's really, just about getting the energy flowing through the body.
Love it. All right. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Troy some more. And he's also going to tell us about a download link as well. So stay tuned and we will be right back after this brief break. All right. And we are back. Of course, we're coming to you from KPFK 90.7 FM in Southern California. And you are tuned in to the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. And of course, that's me. And we are speaking with my guest today, Troy Casey. And we are having an incredible conversation about nature, the body, us being nature, really getting back to what is normal and natural to the mind, the physiology, just overall homeostasis, the overall balance, and how all that aligns with the planet balance. How when we're in balance, everything else will come into balance. It's you're just not caught up in the greed and just certain behaviors. They're just not there simply because you are in such a balance with yourself. So those are some of the things that I gather from this conversation. Now, Troy, can we talk about that download link that you mentioned that you have?
Yes, I have a playlist with all the corrective exercises for your posture, as well as very gentle and simple Qigong movements, including the stork walk, which will reprogram your diaphragm. I challenge people to 100 consecutive days of the stork walk, or any one of my simple rudimentary Qigong moves, like the Zen swing, which moves every joint in the body and moves the cerebral spinal fluid, the synovial fluid. It lubricates the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons. Really gets you moving. If people want to really heal the human body, just look up medical Qigong. It's a real principle that has a tremendous track record for healing the human body. So very, very simple. Everything that I teach is simple, nature-based technology. And so the playlist has the corrective exercises, the Qigong, and it's got, my funny take on walking and, all these other things. And so very simple. There's some breathwork videos on there as well if you want to go a little bit more advanced. And my mentor, Paul Chek, is on there as well. And so it's a playlist. If you just go to school on that playlist, and really you only have to watch the first couple of them, figure out which exercises you want to try first, whether it's walking or the Zen swing or the stork walk. And then from there, it's consistency. Everything is about consistency. I had black mold exposure from 2010 to 2013 when I was living in Santa Monica, and it broke down my body. I had autoimmune, and I had to rebuild my biomechanics. I had really weird arthritis that went from joint to joint, and I had to rebuild my body systematically. And these are the tools that I use. And obviously, you can see the results that I achieved on my book cover. And so, and I'm in better shape at 55 than on my book cover. And so, when you align yourself with nature and you live a cleanse and detox lifestyle and you move your body every day, then you can achieve the body of your dreams.
And that's very, very clear. And then you don't have to worry so much about, certain things like medication, things that the body finds very artificial to it and difficult to process. And the thing is, we can start at any time. That's
correct.
Yeah, I didn't start, 5 years or 10 years ago. I think any time is good for starting. And Troy talked about walking, and I see a lot of people need to park really close when they're going to the store. And I think that's a way to also start. It's go ahead and park further away and walk to the store. If that's the only time that you're getting your walking in, then I say to do that. But that's always a comment of mine. So, all right. So anyway, I also want to talk about one of the things you mentioned before in your videos, and that we're talking about. I'm looking at a note here. Nose and mouth breathing. Is there anything that you can provide for us? Because some people are even mouth breathers, just walking around all the time, and out of habit. Some of it is out of habit. Some of it may be health issues. Maybe they're always blocked in here. Is there anything that you can provide to give some insight as to either what could be going on or what approaches they could probably take?
Well, there can always be emotional disturbances when we're children. The trauma in our nervous system sends us into fight or flight. Ultimately, mouth breathing, think about it. When you're running away from a lion or some bad situation, you have your mouth, you're trying to get as much oxygen into your body as possible to move your extremities. And so, I see a lot of clients, they have issues with shallow breathing, neck breathing, mouth breathing. This will give you big pains in the neck and the scalenes and the brachial plexus. And so the best thing to do is to tape your mouth shut at night to see how your breathing mechanics are doing. Now, if your nasal passages are clogged, then I highly recommend you do my nutrition program on my website to clear out the gunk, the internal gunk, and allow the channels to start to open up. Everyone's heard of constipation, so that's an impacted colon. What happens when that gets impacted and backed up? It goes into the liver, it goes into the kidneys, the spleen, the energy, the organs. These are primary elements in our functionality of our body. And when those are clogged up, it's going to affect other aspects of the body, especially the lymphatic system, and that is related to the sinuses. And so you want to open up those channels. You open them up, you can get it into a far infrared sauna, exercise programs, and start paying attention. Awareness is the first step. So start paying attention. We've been gifted with the gift of Vipassana. So we spend 3 to 4 days just focusing on the breath, witnessing it coming in and out of the nose. So you'll notice And you'll notice when you start sitting a Vipassana course, you're like, oh, my nose is clogged. But then as you start paying more attention to it and you start breathing through the nose, lo and behold, you get alleviated. Sometimes my nose would run for days just sitting those Vipassana courses. So awareness is the first step. You can read James Nestor book or listen to James Nestor on the Joe Rogan podcast. He is the foremost expert in the research on mouth breathing, nasal breathing, et cetera. Joe Rogan and him were talking about, all the MMA fighters. So if you do need surgery, don't get surgery willy-nilly. Try and do cleanse and detox first. Try and clear out your nasal passages. Do neti pots with a saline solution. Nobody should be using, don't use tap water in your neti pot, because tap water has chlorine in it and fluoride. And these mucous membranes up in the nose, you want to use filtered water as much as possible with a little bit of saline solution. I practice Shivambu, which is urine therapy. And so I put my own urine up through there as well to keep those passages clean. And lo and behold, let's look at where we're at in this industrial age. We've trashed the planet. There's pollution everywhere. There's particulates in the air, even in Sedona, Arizona. All the people are leaving California trying to find a safer haven. They're coming out here. There's so much traffic. There's so much pollution here. And then also whatever they're dropping out of the planes, those particulates, the aluminum, the barium, the strontium. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt talks extensively about this. So be very aware, because awareness is the first step. I don't want to overwhelm you, but it's responsible as a man, especially, but as a human being on this planet. We know what's on the horizon to eat us, and we also know what's on the horizon to eat. And so, what could potentially be eating us now is so subversive. It's all scientifically validated. Whether it's, even the car pollution, we all know that it is there. The plane pollution, we know it's there, but we're not doing much about it. And lo and behold, we're becoming extremely toxic. I recommend people listen to the Joseph Mercola, Dr. Mercola, Dietrich Klinghardt interview. I think it was released recently, or at least somebody sent it to me. Really understand the world that you're living in the third dimension. Don't just be pie in the sky and love and bliss and everything's going to work out on the back end. God helps those who help themselves. And so we have to, clean up our vessel, get very cognizant of what's going on, and then become the change we wish to see in the world, as Gandhi said. This is the real work. There's no bypassing. It's all an inside job.
I love it. It is. Excuse me. Like the name of my the book, that companion to the film I produced, called The Business of Disease. The book is called Health and Inside Job and Outside Business. So it is an inside job and outside business. And of course, Troy and I do have several things in common as I listen to him talk. And you mentioned even urine therapy, which people will go, oh my God. I mean, but those are things that I've certainly done, for long periods of time in my life. And I'm mentioning that because we've been taught to be so afraid and so disconnected from our bodies and from understanding the body's natural ability to fix itself, to heal itself with the right support under the right conditions. And if we are not educated enough on the function of this amazing technology, then you're going to be scared of your body. And so, so therefore, what sends you right back out there to people who are giving you poison, so it's really, really important. So the body does fix itself. And also, yes, Vipassana, he mentioned Vipassana, and that 10 days of silence and working in a way that is just incredible is so necessary. I think everybody should have that opportunity to do something like that.
I agree. And I just like to say the temple of God is the human body, and mind is an embodied process. So if you look at nerve endings, the mind you are all mind all the way out to your fingertips, ultimately, or let's just put that in a philosophical concept. Mind is an embodied process. That's why awareness is the first step. And we can create whatever the mind can conceive and believe, we can achieve. The Wright brothers wanted to fly like an eagle, and everyone told them they were crazy. Steve Jobs wanted to put a handheld computer in everyone's hand, and everyone called him crazy. So let's not forget that. And then let's tune up the body temple and achieve that which we desire. And you made the point earlier, it's never too late. It's never too late. Look at the 80, 90-year-old Qigong masters on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And also, yes, when we do those things, cleaning up the body, the things that are coming at us, some of the things that you mentioned, in the air, the toxicity, it's like we're building the temple or strengthening the temple to be able to combat or override some of these frequencies. And I think that, people have to start maybe looking at things from that standpoint, really understanding that we can override some of these frequencies that are coming at us, while we aim to make those necessary changes on the planet. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, absolutely. And let's look at frequency and vibration. There's been a lot of research with biophotonic light on or Kirlian photography on the vibration of food. And so if you look at commercial or genetically engineered food, it's going to have a different vibration of organic food. There's only less than 10% of the food produced in the world is organic. And I am a living example of what putting, good food, good water, pure water into the body, optimizing the detoxification pathways. So you can raise your frequency and vibration, on the physical level. Then that will give you the cognitive function to go deeper on the spiritual realm, right? Most of us are just in fear. We're bogged down by metabolic processes, and we can't even think straight. So reverse engineer, work from the physical and the mental, go back up into the emotional, into the spiritual. And so it doesn't matter. All roads lead to God. And so if you start with the spiritual, that's great. But I like to postulate that most fit people aren't healthy. Most health people aren't fit. And most spiritual people aren't healthy or fit. And so, go back to becoming the change that you wish to see in the world.
Oh, you just say so many key things. And that's so true right there, because some of the things that, yes, there are people that are practicing yoga and, many of these, what technically or ancient tools, but because so many things are such fad-like and such the thing to do, that many of these things have become topical, and people not really going deeply in to really what these practices are supposed to help us to do, is to bring us back to this centered space. And this is not, woo-woo fluff conversation. I think that we really have to look at, what are we, who are we? Start looking at it from a deeper standpoint. We realize that there has to be some balance that comes in order to sustain this vehicle.
Well, balance in a dysfunctional world too. Let's not, we have to understand, there are forces out there that are not good for your health. And instead of just giving up our power to the government or the way things are, or business, or, look what's happening in the world right now. Your mom and pop stores and the health food stores are closed, and then the big box stores are open. So my big clarion call to people, and what we're doing here with the Sedona Greenhouse Project, is really checking in with food sovereignty and looking at your own food production. Food is free when you drop a seed in the soil. You have to cultivate the soil. There's a little work to be involved, but get involved with your community gardens, because if they lock up the digital cash, or you can't go shopping anymore, you're going to need food to survive. And so we want to be really clear on this, instead of being sold all this brainwashing and the fraud that's being perpetrated. People will do very good studying the UN Agenda 21, the Rio Conference in '92, the World Economic Forum, and the Great Reset. Look into the Bilderbergs. You look at the Georgia Guidestones. It's written in stone that they want to reduce the population to 500 million. Now, you look at quantum mechanics and you look at high level scientific discovery right now, they're talking about all possibilities and dimensional shifts. So you want to raise your vibration, we might just do a shift. They're talking about the Mandela effect and jumping timelines. That may already be happening. And
Oh,
if
it
that's
is.
the case, let's use the human beings, the most technological advanced piece of equipment in the whole entire universe. Einstein said we're only using 5% of our brain. So let's start tapping into that, raising our vibration as much as possible, becoming the change. And you may bifurcate into another dimension. And
Absolutely.
and that's what you want, because peace on earth, I postulate, is coming. That is the good news. And I've researched human psychology. We all want peace at the heart level. So if that is true, if that has any relevance, start calling that forth to the nth degree, just like the Wright brothers wanting to fly like an eagle.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can't approach any of this without going down this rabbit hole of like you just mentioned, the idea of even different dimensions and realms and different pockets of time. That for me is what happened. When I went in search of, I thought I was going in search of one thing, and it opened up into all these other aspects because it's all connected. So it just depends on how open a person is, how much freedom that do they want to experience, how much having control over their own vehicle. I say stop renting and leasing out your body. That's what I always say, stop renting it out. So another thing too is that we have to always be so cautious now too about what is said. So I find that so just amazing, that we can't say certain things if it doesn't fit in line with the narrative.
The social conditioning, the
Yes.
social engineering, the propaganda, the neo-Marxism,
You get in
the
trouble.
divide and con. Well, free speech is still out there. People don't like me because I express my free speech. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
but you should uphold anyone. I remember studying this many years ago. They allowed the communists on the street to hand out their pamphlets. We should allow anyone to propagate their ideas. The problem is the mind stores information in images, and the corporations know this. The news corporations know this, and so they're programming the human mind. I used to be on KPFK. I was on Fidel's show, the hip hop show, and he would always talk about decolonize your mind. So what does that? Psychedelics are a tool. Vipassana meditation is a tool. Getting in cold bodies of water, doing breath work, really clearing the channels. And if these are a bunch of psycho chicken ideas, but you practice them, you see how you feel after that. And I don't recommend that people do psychedelics. I recommend that they research and see if this is right for them. And you can go to Peru, you can go to Mexico, you can go to Costa Rica and work with skilled shamans where these psychedelic drugs, psychedelic medicines, these natural medicines are available. Or you can work in the Native American church. Anyone who's got a Native American church that does peyote or any of these things in the United States of America that's legal, they're working on legalizing psilocybin mushrooms right now.
Right.
It's legal in Oakland, I do believe, Santa Cruz, Denver. It's either been legalized or decriminalized. And so these are fundamental tools in dismantling the programming, decolonizing your mind with the idea of the colonizers. And so, and look at your industrial age school system. You've been programmed for 12 years. Look up Rockefeller medicine, look up Rockefeller education. All these things we've been sold. You stay close to God and stay away from the state if you want to access your own divinity.
Absolutely. Well, we are definitely there now. Let's see, what's your website? I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to say in terms of, where people can connect with your work and products or coaching or any of that.
I'm most active on Instagram and YouTube right now, and those platforms are flourishing. There's also censorship, so please log on to my website, troycasey.com. Get on my email list to get my updates. I do men's work, nature immersion for men only. I also do breath work, holotropic, that are co-ed. I coach a handful of clients, but usually I'm working, my time's very precious, and I can do more making videos and reaching millions of people. And so I only work with, high-level executives that can make greater impact in the world for my coaching services. Otherwise, my retreats, my men's retreats, and my co-ed events for breathwork is a great place to connect with me. I have online courses as well. My stress management course. Which course did you get, Sonia?
It's the breath work, the series there. With
Breath is Life.
Breath is Life. That's it. Yeah, Breath is Life. So I'm still working my way through because my schedule, but I have certain practices that I do several times a day, every day, all the basic stretching and the breathing and the hanging and the, and the ball, stretching myself out, all of those things. And, and it's combined with my Qigong practice as well. They're not done together like that, but I do both.
And the simplest way to get started is to get my book. It has all the principles that I teach.
You disappeared. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, there's your book. Okay.
I'm showing my book cover. And
Yes.
so my book is available on my website. It's available on Amazon. It's available at the Thunderbolt Spiritual Bookstore in Santa Monica if you want a signed autograph copy of it. And it's hardcover. It's a limited edition. It's designed as a coffee table book, family heirloom. I made an old school hardcover. So if you want the hardcover, it's available in Santa Monica at the Thunderbolt Bookstore. And I guarantee it will blow your mind. It's not what you expect. The medicine is in there. And I tell my pretty hardcore stories from growing up on the street as a kid, incarcerated as a youth, working in the fashion industry. The stories start out with Tupac Shakur and Donatella Versace during the men's shows in 1996, 2 months before Tupac Shakur died. And it goes through my stories in the Amazon, living in Hollywood, and then of course all my work in the Amazon and working with the Shipipo and drinking ayahuasca.
All right, that sounds great, exciting. All right, thank you so much, Troy. I can't wait to chat with you again. So everybody, go ahead, check out his work. I'm telling you, you will be delighted that you did. All right, we've come to the end of the show. Thank you again, Troy, for being here. And thanks to the listening audience. Thanks to our engineer. And do visit theexpansionzone.com, everybody, for the archive of this show, other shows. And to find out more about my work, do visit therealsoniabarrett.com. And as always, I like to remind you to live life to its fullest and question everything. Until next time, see you then.